Welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be diving in.
We're jumping straight into a really fascinating area today, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
That's right. And our guide for this exploration is, well, a stack of sources you've shared specifically. These are excerpts from their official website, alislam.org.
Exactly. So our mission is pretty clear. We're here to unpack what these specific sources tell us. Extract the key nuggets of knowledge about who they are, what they believe.
Their key activities, their stances,
Right.
yeah. All based directly on the material provided. Nothing more, nothing less.
And the sources introduce the community right away, don't they?
They do. They identify themselves as Muslims who hold particular belief that they believe in the Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian.
Okay.
And they lead with a motto that the source presents as central to their identity. Love for all, hatred for none. That really sets the initial frame for us based on this text.
Okay, so let's unpack this founding story as presented in the source. It tells us the community was founded back in 1889.
Right. By Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, lived 1835 to 1908. And it's framed, interestingly, as a revival movement within Islam.
And what's really central, it jumps out from the source's account, is his claim.
Oh, absolutely. He claimed, according to the source, to be the metaphorical second coming of Jesus Christ and the Mahdi.
Right, both figures.
Both figures, yeah. The source presents this as a kind of singular fulfillment of prophecies about both their advents.
And the purpose of his coming, what does the source say about that?
Well, the source states he was sent by God specifically to end religious wars, to condemn bloodshed.
And restore morality, justice, peace, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It positions his appearance as a necessary step for Islam at that particular time.
So a reformer figure.
Very much so, according to the source. He focused on reforming Muslims away from what the text describes as fanatical beliefs and championing what it calls true Islam.
Okay.
And here's a really interesting point the source emphasizes. His recognition of the noble teachings of founders from, loads of different world religions.
Like who?
Figures like Zoroaster, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu, and even Guru Nanak.
Wow, that's a remarkably broad list, isn't it? What's the significance there, according to the source?
The source suggests that the original teachings of these figures, at their core.
The original ones.
Right, the original ones converge into true Islam. It presents this as part of his bigger mission, basically, to unify humanity under God.
Okay, building on that idea then, his purpose being peace. Let's look at how the source talks about jihad, because this is a really, really prominent point in the material we have.
It absolutely is. The source makes it crystal clear. The community categorically rejects terrorism, full stop.
Right.
It states that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, way back over a century ago, declared that jihad by the sword, it just has no place in Islam anymore.
Okay, so if not jihad by the sword, then what is the concept of jihad for them, according to the source material?
The source defines it as jihad of the pen.
Jihad of the pen.
Yeah. So defending Islam, but doing it through bloodless intellectual means. Following the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad's example, but using argument, reason, education.
So like intellectual debate, writing, teaching. That's the battlefield, so to speak.
Precisely, as presented by the source. And Mirza Ghulam Ahmad himself is held up as the prime example of this jihad of the pen.
Oh, so.
Well, the source points to his massive output, over 80 books, thousands of letters, lectures, debates.
Wow.
That was his way, it argues, of defending and reviving Islam peacefully. And the community, the source says, continues this today, using education for peaceful reform and revival.
This kind of leads us naturally to a key organizational concept the source presents, Khilafat. Can you explain that based on the text?
Sure. The source introduces Khilafat as the spiritual institution of successorship to prophethood.
Okay, successorship.
Exactly. It's tied to a belief, stated in the source, that God promised to safeguard Islam specifically through this line of spiritual leaders, these caliphs.
And what role does the source assign to this Khilafat in the world today?
Well, the belief stated in the source is that only Islamic Khilafat can peacefully unite humanity. It's presented as a unifying force for peace.
And the source mentions there have been successors.
Yes, it notes that 5 caliphs have succeeded Mirza Ghulam Ahmad since he passed away.
And the current one, does the source name him?
It does. It identifies the current Khalifa as Mirza Masroor Ahmad. The source says he resides in the UK and acts as the spiritual and administrative head for the whole global community.
Okay, looking through the source material, the sheer scale of this community and its activities under the Khilafat, It's quite striking, isn't it?
It certainly is. The source gives some pretty big numbers, spans over 200 nations,
500.
with tens of millions of members worldwide. That's what the source claims.
And it details the infrastructure they've built under the Khilafat's direction.
Yeah, quite a bit. Over 16,000 mosques, 600 schools, and 30 hospitals. These are presented as, tangible results of their global presence and organization.
And making the Quran accessible seems important, too.
Very much so. They've translated the Holy Quran, according to the source, into over 70 languages.
70.
And they use modern methods to spread their teachings. The source mentions peace and tolerance specifically here. Things like a 24-hour satellite TV channel, MTA.
Ah, yes.
It's their website, alislam.org, which is where these excerpts came from, and print publications, too.
The source also touches on humanitarian work.
It does. It mentions their involvement in disaster relief across the globe through a nonprofit charity called Humanity First. And, the source material also makes a point of highlighting what it presents as some unique positions and characteristics of the community.
Right, I saw that. One point that really stands out is the claim that they are the only Islamic organization, according to the source anyway, to endorse the separation of mosque and state. That's quite a statement.
It is a strong statement presented in the source. They also emphasize their advocacy for universal human rights.
For everyone.
Yes, including for all religious and other persecuted minorities. And the source goes into some detail about their investment in women's equality, education, and empowerment programs.
So how does the source tend to characterize the members themselves? What's the vibe it gives?
Well, it describes them as being among the most law-abiding, educated, and engaged Muslims globally. That's the picture the source paints of the community's character.
Now, it's important we also acknowledge, just as the source material does, that despite all this, the focus on peace, the global reach, these unique stances, the community faces some pretty serious challenges.
Yes, absolutely. The source explicitly states that they face bitter, faith-based persecution
Whereabouts?
in numerous Muslim-majority nations. This is presented as a stark reality they encounter, based purely on their faith, according to this source.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just quickly recap the key insights we've pulled directly from these sources.
Sure. So we've seen a community founded on that very specific claim about Mirza Ghulam Ahmad being the promised Messiah and Mahdi, and deeply committed, according to the source, to peace and this intellectual defense of Islam, the jihad of the pen.
They operate under a global spiritual leadership, the Khilafat, which the source presents as absolutely central to their unity and purpose.
And that structure supports a really significant global presence with all that infrastructure, the media efforts, all aimed at propagating their message.
And the sources highlight those positions, like the separation of mosque and state and advocating for human rights, as kind of distinctive markers.
And we have to note, as the source does, the significant persecution they face. It all ties back, really, to the source material's own stated focus on peace, justice, and unity.
So thinking about all this, just based on the material, what strikes you? I mean, considering all the diverse interpretations and challenges facing faith communities today, what is the Ahmadiyya Muslim community's emphasis on this jihad of the pen and the separation of mosque and state, as described in these sources, suggest about maybe different pathways within a major world religion like Islam? It's definitely something to chew on.
Islam Ahmadiyyat, Islam Ahmadiyyat, Islam Ahmadiyyat, Islam Ahmadiyyat. बाकी सभी फसाने जिंदा यही हकीकत, जिंदा यही हकीकत. इस्लाम अहमदियत, इस्लाम अहमदियत, इस्लाम अहमदियत, इस्लाम अहमदियत. बाकी सभी फसाने जिंदा यही हकीकत, जिंदा यही हकीकत. इस्लाम अहमदियत, इस्लाम अहमदियत, इस्लाम अहमदियत, इस्लाम अहमदियत.